Adolf Hitler spent his early adulthood in the streets of Vienna, where he failed as an artist and absorbed the extreme nationalist and anti-Semitic ideologies already circulating in European politics. He did not invent these ideas, he adopted them, and they would eventually become the core of his worldview. When World War I ended in 1918, Germany's defeat shocked the nation. Rather than accept that they had been beaten fairly on the battlefield, many German nationalists embraced the false stab-in-the-back myth. This conspiracy theory claimed that the military had not failed, but that civilians, politicians, and Jews had shattered the empire from the inside. That resentment deepened the following year. The Treaty of Versailles forced Germany to accept full blame for the war, pay massive financial reparations, drastically limit its military, and surrender significant territory. Military humiliation, economic punishment, and political myth-making created a deeply unstable environment. The newly formed Weimar Republic was a fragile democracy, tasked with governing a population that felt both angry and betrayed. The early Weimar Republic struggled to survive its own financial collapse. By 1923, hyperinflation had destroyed the value of the German mark, wiping out the life savings and economic security of average citizens. That same year, Hitler and his small extremist Nazi party attempted an armed coup in Munich called the Beer Hall Putsch. The rebellion failed and Hitler was sent to prison, but the trial gave him national attention, and the failure taught him a vital lesson. Trying to seize power by force would not work. He needed to use the democratic system to tear down democracy from the inside. Following a brief period of stability, the global economy crashed in 1929. The Great Depression shattered Germany's recovery, closing factories and sending unemployment soaring. Millions of desperate people lost faith in moderate politicians, turning the Nazi Party from a fringe group into a massive political movement offering simple scapegoats. By 1932, the Nazis were the largest party in parliament, but they lacked an absolute majority. Germany's conservative elites, operating under President Paul von Hindenburg, made a fatal miscalculation. They legally appointed Hitler as Chancellor, believing they could harness his popular support while easily controlling him. Hitler's entry into power was a legal maneuver facilitated by the state's own elite guardians. They opened the door to dictatorship in a misguided attempt to restore order and maintain their own influence. In February 1933, the German parliament building, the Reichstag, caught fire. The Nazis immediately blamed communists and weaponized the crisis to issue emergency decrees. Civil liberties were suspended, independent media was shut down, and political opponents were thrown in prison. Weeks later, under intense intimidation from Nazi paramilitary forces, Parliament passed the Enabling Act. This legislative maneuver legally allowed Hitler's cabinet to enact laws without parliamentary approval. With all checks on his power removed, Hitler rapidly consolidated a one-party dictatorship. Trade unions were destroyed, rival political parties were banned, and relied on relentless propaganda and the terror of the Gestapo and SS to enforce total loyalty. The tragedy of 1933 was the speed of the collapse. The Nazis used the established tools of the law to permanently dismantle the law itself. Hitler soon rejected the limits of the Versailles Treaty entirely. He rebuilt the military and aggressively expanded his borders, sending troops into the Rhineland and annexing Austria. Britain and France, hoping to avoid another war, met these moves with a policy of appeasement. That hesitation ended on September 1, 1939, when Germany invaded Poland, triggering World War II. The German military utilized a rapid, highly coordinated tactic known as blitzkrieg to break through enemy lines and force the collapse of Western Europe, including France, in a matter of weeks. But in 1940, the German Air Force failed to defeat the Royal Air Force. The survival of Britain forced Germany's first major strategic halt, leaving an unbroken enemy on their western flank. This map illustrates the catastrophic decision that followed. In 1941, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, a massive invasion of the Soviet Union. As these German forces pushed east, their supply lines stretched across enormous geographic distances. Soviet resistance hardened, and as winter hit, the German advance stalled entirely. The Holocaust was the central project of Nazi ideology. As German territory expanded east, the state implemented a systematic network of deportations and extermination camps to carry out the genocide of 6 million Jews and millions of other targeted victims. The German military momentum was finally broken at Stalingrad. Soviet forces surrounded and destroyed an entire German army. The myth of Nazi invincibility was shattered, and the Soviet Union began the long push west. The absolute authority that allowed Hitler to terrorize his own population meant there were no institutions left to question his military decisions. Unchecked power at home guaranteed catastrophic overreach abroad. On this map, the geographic impossibility of Germany's position by 1944 is clear. After the D-Day landings in Normandy, Germany was trapped in a two-front war, squeezed between the industrial might of the Western Allies and the relentless Soviet advance from the east. As the front lines collapsed inward, the war was forced back onto German soil. Relentless Allied bombing campaigns reduced German infrastructure, factories, and entire cities to rubble. By April 1945, Soviet forces had encircled Berlin. With the military situation completely hopeless, Hitler died by suicide in his underground bunker. Shortly after, the ruined nation unconditionally surrendered. The movement that promised a 1,000-year empire of national revival had lasted exactly 12 years, delivering only widespread death and the destruction of the country. In the aftermath, Germany was divided into occupation zones. At the Nuremberg trials, surviving Nazi leaders were prosecuted, exposing the unparalleled scale of the regime's crimes to the global public. The collapse of the Third Reich redrew the map of global politics. Europe was left devastated. The United States and the Soviet Union emerged as rival superpowers, and the Cold War began. Hitler's rise remains a historical warning about the fragility of democracy. A system can be dismantled from within when economic collapse, deep institutional weakness, and elite miscalculation allow extremist movements to seize control of the state.